Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Across the world on the internet. Hello and good morning. Welcome to the program, The Michael Dukes Show, Wednesday edition of the show. We are broadcasting live across the net and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. Hi, how are you? How are you doing today? It is post-election day for many of the communities around the state of Alaska, and we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning as well. We'll give you some details and talk about some stuff and things. We've also got some guests today. We're going to continue our discussion, with a discussion about politics, of course, because you know what else have we got going on? We're going to be talking with Russell Wyatt, who is a Democrat with House District 19. He's going to be joining us here this morning, and we're going to be talking with him about his candidacy in hour one. And then in hour two, we're going to change gears just a little bit. It's not going to be candidates per se, but it is going to be a discussion with Josh Church and I believe Fred Veidman from the Convention Yes people, the folks from Convention Yes. So we're going to be talking with them to get some of the pro side of the issues regarding the Constitutional Convention, and we'll see what we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting time. I'm looking forward to getting some of the details and some of that information from the folks over there at Convention Yes, and of course to talk about the issues that are going to be facing the state with a variety of candidates. That's today. Tomorrow on the program, Ginger Bryant is going to be joining us in hour one, and Ginger is running as a nonpartisan in House District 6, which she is the third candidate in the District 6 race. That is Sarah Vance and Louis Flora and Ginger Bryant. So she's going to be calling in tomorrow to discuss things with us. And then we will be talking with Ron Gillum at the bottom of the hour. In the second hour, we'll be talking with Ron Gillum. And I am working on putting together a debate between Ron Gillum and Justin Ruffridge, who that's been a contentious race for some, and I know people have been asking for that, so I am working on it. I have got both candidates have tacitly agreed to it in the beginning. Now we just need to work out the details for the final debate, which will probably be sometime week after next. But that's what's going on right now. Booking out into the end of next week right now as well, and of course we are only 4 weeks away from the general election, 5 weeks away. So we're 4.5 or so weeks away from that, and we're going to be talking about all the things that are fit to print. Be looking forward to that here as we move forward. All right. Headlines, I guess. Headlines. Who's got your headlines? There's a few, but nothing really jumping right out at me. I see that there's still some sniping. I still see that there's still some sniping amongst gubernatorial candidates, with Les Garrett and Bill Walker basically blasting Mike Dunleavy for not being at a Kodiak debate that was focused on commercial fishing, which it could be to his detriment. I have no idea at this point. I have not seen any of the polling. I have no indication. He was up in Nome, apparently, according to the ADN, and overseeing or looking over or doing whatever he was doing. He traveled to Nome on Monday to check on the recovery rebuilding process of that big storm that was from last month. And of course, we're supposed to have a new storm, I guess tomorrow, this new storm is supposed to be coming in, and it's not going to be as big, but it was a big one. But even before the storm struck, according to the ADN, the Kodiak debate was not one of the 5 that Dunleavy had confirmed that he was going to join in his August announcement from his campaign, when he said that the selected debates represent as many interests as possible. He later canceled his participation in one of the 5 forums he'd committed to in order to respond to the storm fallout as it came down last month. So we'll see what happens. Now, again, the interesting thing here is that I see nothing about Charlie Pierce at all in this. Let me see here. There we go. A recent poll conducted by Alaska Survey Research shows Dunleavy running ahead of Garrett and Walker. A second Republican candidate, Charlie Pierce, has been largely absent from the campaign trail. That's it. The former KPB borough mayor is facing a harassment claim from borough employees, what it says. But there's nothing else. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what is happening, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens here. But so far, not seeing anything from Charlie Pierce. I guess we'll have to reach out to him this week to see what is the skinny. What is happening? What is going on? So anyway, that was the big thing there. But what was really interesting to watch was the election results from the interior. We've got a few election results from the interior and down on the peninsula. Let me start on the peninsula because I, again, would be the first to tell you that I'm not as familiar with the peninsula names as I am with the interior names. But it looks like a pretty good run for both areas. And if anybody in the chat room is going to sound off on it and tell me if I'm wrong, I would appreciate that if I'm off base on anything. Kenai City Mayor Brian Gabriel has been reelected to another term. He was first elected in 2016 and served in the Kenai City Council from 2010 to 16. He's been a member of the Alaska Bycatch Review Task Force since being appointed by Dunleavy earlier this year. He beat Tia Winger by, it was a 2-1 margin. 2-1 margin. What more? It was over the 2-1 margin. Kenai City Council seat B, Alex Duthit beat Victoria Askin and Glenise Petty, who is the incumbent. He beat both of them, or I guess I should say she. I don't know if Alex Duthit, it's a androgynous name, so I'm assuming it's a man, but that's what happens when you assume a gender. We know that. Kenai Borough, Assembly District 3 in Nikiski, Jesse Bjorkman has beaten both Dill Uhill and Chase Griffith, who were the 2 challengers. He is the incumbent. He won by a 2-1 margin. Assembly Member District 4 in Soldotna, Tyson Cox, the incumbent, beating out Donald Boston by, again, just under 2-1. There seems to be a theme here. Assembly District 7, Brent Johnson was unopposed. He won. Mayor Ken Kastner of Homer won unopposed again. Mayor Homer City Council member Jason Davis and Storm Hansen have both won re-election with 498 and 473 votes, respectively. City of Seward, Sue McClure has been elected mayor, having run unopposed. But she's only going to serve on the council until, I'm sorry. Her term on the city council ends next October and will need to be filled by a special election. She's been serving on the city council, and so she's elevated now to the mayor's office, and her council seat is going to have to be filled by a special election. Randy Wells and Kevin Fitch were both elected to the Seward City Council as well. Soldotna City Council seats, both the incumbents won. David Carey, Lisa Parker, they both won handily. So, looks like kind of business as usual for the most part. It looks like almost every incumbent won, or most people ran unopposed. No surprising upsets down on the peninsula. But in the interior, it was a little bit of a red wave. In fact, that's what Suzanne Downing calls it in Must Read. Red wave. Fairbanks goes conservative. Dave Pruse, who was running as the conservative candidate, beat Valerie Therian 56 to 42%. So that's a pretty chunky win for David Pruse, and I'm glad to see that he is. Now being installed up there. Sue Sprinkle has won City Council seat C. Aaron Gibson, again, that's a squeaker for seat D, 49.87% to 49.40%. So 0.4%. It'll be interesting to see how many votes that actually accounts for. It's got to be just a handful of votes. Brett Rotterman, my friend up there in Fairbanks, who sent me a message and said, should I run for borough assembly? And I said, what do you got to lose? And he did, and he won 52%. Brett Rotterman for seat B. And Barbara Haney, who calls into the program quite frequently, also winning by looks like a 3-point margin, 2.5 3-point margin in borough assembly seat I. Brandy Hardy, 49.64%. For the school board in seat C. That's the only disappointment right now. Now it's close, 49.64% for Brandy. Les Nichols, 49.49%. So less than, it's 0.15% of a vote. That's going to obviously, I think, trigger a recall or a recount, not a recall, a recount. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the absentees and everything else. Also, Melissa Burnett, who we had on the program here yesterday, running for for school board seat D. Too many seats here. School board seat D. She beat her in her challenger by about 8%. So 53.5% to 45, almost 46%. So these are all, again, I don't know if this includes all the trickle-ins and everything else, but this is a pretty interesting win for the more conservative side of the fence as the interior of Alaska finally gets a chance to sound off in their local elections. So congratulations to everybody involved there and down in the Kenai and everywhere else. Congratulations to all the winners. And we hope you can all deliver on all of your promises, all of them, all of the time, everywhere, all at once. All right. That brings us up to the break, which means we got to go. We're going to be talking with Russell Wyatt here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll return with candidate discussions right after this.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the commercial break right now, and I think that we have got Russell Wyatt. I think he's on the phone. He was having internet issues apparently this morning, and I think we have to do it the old-fashioned way. We'll have to see how it goes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay.
You still
Happy internet.
you're still struggling without the internet, huh?
Yep, I talked to GCI about an hour this morning, and they're like, "Oh, well, we can come fix it tomorrow." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah,
okay."
thanks so much for being helpful, you guys. I appreciate all you guys in Botswana or wherever they're sending the customer service calls these days. We appreciate all your help. Thanks for being part of it. All right, and Russell, do you have a website for your? That was one thing I wasn't able to find.
I actually don't. I didn't actually think I was going to get this far.
You didn't think you were going to get this far, so you're like, whatever. You have a Facebook page or anything else, or you just
I do.
okay? And what is that? Just Facebook.com, Russell Wyatt, or what?
Yep.
All right. Just trying to make sure that I got it all, got all the intel and all the info here that's possibly needed for us to be ready to. Boy, it's thinking hard this morning. All right, Russell. Well, I'm going to put you back on hold for just a second. Don't go anywhere. You'll still be able to hear me, but I won't be able to hear you. So hold the line for just a second and let me see if I can get see if I can get all this stuff squared away. Okay. Man. Maybe it's not just Russell because boy, the internet seems slow this morning. It seems slow. Here we go. Russell Wyatt for House District 19. Okay. Oh, he doesn't even have a thing here. Okay. I think I got it now. Okay. Look at that. All right, I got the thing and the deal and the other thing. There's even a picture here. So we're should be good to go. And I'm just going to steal this picture of Wyatt right off the page so you guys can see it, and we will be ready to groove. How are you guys doing today? What's happening? Hot stuff? What do you guys? What do you do? What is happening? You guys ready to jump into this and find out more about people and things and stuff? Yeah, that's what I thought. You guys are all asleep. That's what I thought. You guys are all snoozing. Okay. Well, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? I'm ready to. Man, this week has been a hard week for getting up and getting ready. Was all I could do this morning to get up and come talk to you. I was ready to hit the snooze button one more time. All right, let me go over here and just making sure that because I was expecting to be able to just run this as I have been running it, so I have to build the little panel and everything so that when we're talking about it, you can see Russell and you can see his name and you know who it is and everything else. Okay, got it. Look at that. Boom. All done. All right, let me go to the comments real quick here. I only got about a minute before we have to jump back into this. What was the result of the tax cap in Fairbanks? It passed. So yeah, I mean it's been a good stuff there. It was a good time in Fairbanks. Now, there's going to be a couple races that are going to be close, and we haven't seen what the absentee ballot. Oh, in fact, Rob Myers just says there's 1,500 absentee ballots to count across the borough. So some of those that are close, we'll see. We will see what's going on. I just talked to Charlie Pierce yesterday. Says Terry he had just gotten back from a trip down the Yukon visiting the villages. He's in it to win it. Will be participating in all the debates. I'm ready. I'm ready to see what that's all about. Bam! That's just there to wake you up. Just there to wake you up. Let's get back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share this show. Like and follow the show page. Do all the YouTube-y stuff, etc., etc. Let's get to it. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We're everywhere. We are everywhere. And we are diving into it, our continued discussion now with politicians. And we're ready to... We're ready to get down into it. Today, we're talking with Russell Wyatt, who is a Democratic candidate for House District 19, which is in the Anchorage area. House District 19, two Democrats facing off there, Geneva Mina and Russell Wyatt. And Russell is coming on board to talk with us about his candidacy. And he joins us right now. So let's just get talking about it. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks for coming on board and joining us. We appreciate that. And so first and foremost, tell us what exactly are the boundaries of your district for those who may not know where District 19 is down in Anchorage?
It's Mountain View and Airport Heights.
Okay. All right. And tell us a little bit about Russell Wyatt. Who are you? Where are you? Where do you come from? What's your... a little bit of your backstory. So, the origin story, as they used to say. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm from Washington State. I moved up here 13 years ago. And I guess that's really the backstory. Sorry. Never been on the radio before, so.
It's just a conversation. Just picture us both having a cup of coffee and talking to each other. It's no big deal. Nobody else is listening anyway, Russell, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So 13 years ago, I moved up to Alaska from Washington, and I actually started working for GCI, and then I stopped working for them a few years ago, and now I'm having internet problems.
Right. Russell was supposed to appear with us this morning on our new software where it's actually like a video conference, but he's having problems with his internet, so he's calling GCI, and they're ignoring him like they ignore most of us out here as well. So you have a family, you're married, you got everything going on. Tell us a little bit.
I have a girlfriend, and I have two stepkids, and we're actually getting married next January. So,
well, congratulations. Mazel tov and happiness for all of you. Let's talk a little bit about, your when exactly you lost your mind. Now, I had to laugh because I asked you if you had a website because I couldn't find your website, and you said no, because you never expected to get this far. So I guess I got to ask, what exactly did you lose your mind? I mean, what made you decide to run for office if you were not expecting to get very far? Was there a single thing that tripped you over and you said, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? Or was it a cumulative thing? What's the reason here for jumping into the race?
So I was actually watching when they decided to next the PFD, when she was her name is Tara. She was a House representative. Now she's fleeing to the Senate.
Garantar.
Which I did.
Right. Garantar, yep. That's who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. I didn't know that she was going to flee to the Senate. My goal to run was run against her, but that didn't end up happening. And she was talking about the elderly and the disabled people and the poor people that live in her district, and then she turned around and flipped on the full PFD, and right. That just got me pissed off. And then I was really surprised when when she did that, and so I decided I was going to run.
That was it, huh? That the PFD, yep. The PFD became your seminal issue at that point, especially for people in your district who needed it.
Well, right, because Mountain View is the poorest district in Anchorage, and she's like, "Yeah, I support them," and then you steal from them. So,
well, anyway, that's the thing. I mean, hey, look, we've been seeing this for a long time with politicians in the state of Alaska. We support our district. We support the poor and the elderly and the needy and everything else. And give me that PFD. That's been a kind of a continuing process here. But of course, she decided to run for the Senate now instead, which pits you against Geneva. And so let's talk a little bit about philosophies. One of the first questions that I like to ask is, have you gone out? Have you talked to your constituents? Have you gone door to door? What are people in your district telling you as a candidate?
I'm actually surprised. Even though I'm going against Genevieve, I'm actually educating people about Tara too, because I was talking to someone last night, and they were telling me that, they support Tara because she supports 50-50, and that's the way the PFD has always been. And I'm like, that's not the way the PFD has always been. Tara wants to not just steal the government's part, but she wants to steal half of yours too.
Right.
And they're like, no. And then I'm showing them this video, and they're like, wait, what? And her people are out here saying that she supports the original plan, and I'm like, that's never been the original plan.
No, I mean, I think people don't understand, it was the formula, the statutory formula does utilize a 50-50 split, but it's a different split than the POMV split, which is what they're talking. It's very confusing. I mean, people can get easily confused because they're not paying close attention to it. And so even though the statutory formula does utilize a 50-50 split, it's a much larger number than the POMV thing that they're talking about now. And of course, many of your fellow Democrats in the House and the Senate have been talking about that 75-25 split that you're alluding to. And that's a problem. So where do you stand on the PFD? You sound like you're a full statutory PFD guy.
A full statutory PFD. I believe we should pay back what was stolen. I also believe a constitutional convention, because, our legislators are never going to do their jobs.
Now, wait a second. This couldn't possibly be right, Russell, because you're a Democrat. How could you be for all those things, right?
Right. Well, I believe it's the people's money. We shouldn't be stealing it.
Well, that's an interesting distinction, because many politicians won't go on record as saying it's the people's money because, again, it's too juicy a cookie jar to stick their hands in and be able to fund government with. And I think that's an interesting take. Now, have your constituents also been talking with you about, the inflation, the budget, the economy, crime, ranked choice voting? What are the other topics that you're hearing from your constituency, or is it almost all PFD?
It's about 75% PFD, and there's also a lot of crime in Mountain View. And, my opponent, Genevieve, actually wants to cut the police, and she also supports, I don't understand her logic, because she wants to fund all these programs, but she also wants to shut down the oil companies. And I'm like, wait, how are you going to pay for it?
Right.
You can't pay for it if you shoot yourself in the foot.
Right. Yeah, you can't kill the golden goose and expect more eggs in the long run. That's for sure. Now, you don't have a website, but you do have a Facebook page, which all you have to do is look for Russell Wyatt for District 19, and we'll see you there. But you don't have much up there in the way of issues, so I pulled your interview or your questionnaire up from the Alaska Beacon, and I think that there's some interesting dichotomies. You're for a full statutory PFD. You're for the Constitutional Convention. You're for putting the formula in the Constitution. Are you in favor of a constitutional spending cap, which some people have been talking about as well?
I am, and I believe that my priorities the people of District 19 priorities. We could reallocate the money that we're already spending, and spend it on the programs that I support and the people in District 19 support. I honestly believe we don't need to add to the budget. We can just reallocate funds that are being wasted.
Okay. Well, and I agree that a constitutional budget cap or a spending limit would definitely be a good thing. Now, here's what's interesting. I will tell you now, one of the reasons why Garantar probably voted for this is because she was part of the binding caucus in the House, and she promised her vote to the House majority before she got started, and that's why she may have been personally against it, but ended up voting for the lesser PFD. And so I noticed in here that it was asked if you would be willing to join a coalition majority in which the opposite political party controls a majority of seats, and you said no. One of the things about the minority, though, is that they don't have a binding caucus, which allows people to vote their conscience. You still would not be in favor of working with a coalition majority if they're not Democrats, or what?
No, I work for the people. I don't work for the party.
So if there was a coalition that was both Democrats and Republicans, you would or would not join them?
I would not join them, no.
So explain to me how that's working for the people.
So both parties, both Republicans and Democrats, there are people on both sides that want to steal the PFD. There's people on both sides that will only, cater to special interests, and I'm not about that. I haven't taken a single dollar from anyone that wants to cut the PFD. Actually, the only dollar I've ever raised so far was from my girlfriend. She gave me $1. She's like, "Here, run."
Right.
I don't even have a website to send me money. So, I've been supporting this myself, and I spent my PFD on flyers.
On flyers. You spent your PFD on campaign stuff. So, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the size and scope of government. Do you think that the size and scope of government in Alaska, as it sits right now, is too big, too small, or just right, as I like to say?
It's too big.
It's too big. Okay, it's too big. So where would you like to see some reductions made? Do you have any ideas? Have you taken a look at the budget? Do you have any ideas of where reductions or efficiencies could be found?
I honestly believe, this is, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot again. I honestly believe education. We can do vouchers, and I support, the voucher program where we send kids to private schools. And I actually went to a private school in Washington, so.
Okay. Well, are you sure you're in the Democratic Party? I'm just curious here. This is, well, no, and I know where some of your positions are in some of this because I've read the flyer. So, you're kind of more of a, I think, you're registered as a Democrat, but you've got some interesting conservative on you there somewhere. I think you might want to brush it off. It's interesting. You talk about in this, the state of education. And you mentioned you have two step kids that you're going to be, when you get married, you'll have two stepchildren as well. So education obviously is the second largest line item in our budget. We've continued to throw ever increasing amounts of money at education, and yet we continue to fall in the bottom of the barrel, 48th, 49th, 50th in our scholastic achievement. 1 in 4 students will not graduate. Even those who do graduate, most of them have to take remedial math to be able to take 100 level college courses in math. I mean, it's a crazy thing. So what kind of changes to education would you like to see? How do we fix it? And do we just keep throwing more money at it, or is there something fundamentally different that we need to do?
There's definitely something we need to do, because it's crazy that we spend so much on education and we're not getting the results. It's crazy that I also believe teachers aren't being paid enough, but almost all the money is going to the school administrators. So and then like this year they wanted to have like the National Guard take our kids to school because they didn't have it set up correctly. It's
the education. Yeah. I mean, we're throwing, so your answer is not to throw more money at it. Is it a reorganization of how things, because you're making a valid point that we're, only 40 cents of every dollar is making it into the classroom in K through 12 school in the state of Alaska. In the university, it's even worse. It's in the teens of how many dollars are actually making it down into the classroom. So we are very top heavy in administration, it seems like, and that has been a change that's happened gradually over the last 30 years. Should we be reverting back to where the majority of those dollars are all going into the classroom? I mean, that would probably you might be able to hire a few more teachers, kind of thing.
I agree 100% that's exactly what we should do.
And one of the other big issues, do we have enough time? We don't have enough time. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back. Russell Wyatt is our guest, Democratic contender for State House in District 19. We're going to put him back on hold, and we're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We will continue with Russell Wyatt, Democratic candidate for District 19, right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, in the break right now with Russell Wyatt. We like to change gears just a little bit here, Russell. And the comments, the comments in the chat room are cracking me up this morning. We've had some Democrats on it, and this is a show. I'm a libertarian, but definitely a conservative libertarian, and so it's interesting to see that. It's interesting to see that many of the folks in here with the Democrats that we've had, they've had some, some contentious comments, but everybody in here's like, I like this guy. He's. Are you sure he's a Democrat? You've got a lot of positions here that. So I mean, tell the folks in the chat room of the positions that you don't think that they would agree with you on. Where are you at that makes you a Democrat? I mean, are you a Democrat because your mom and dad were a Democrat, or is this something you chose in life? As you identify as a Democrat, what's give us some backing on that.
So I actually identify more as an independent, but where I'm from, you either have to be a Republican or a Democrat to run for office, and Mountain View, they swing more Democrat, so I decided to run as a Democrat. It's funny because my grandma, she supports Trump, and my grandpa supports Biden, and so conversations over there are always funny.
Oh man, Thanksgiving must be a blast in your place. Gotta tell you right now. But I don't think that's true. I mean, look at how many Democrats have become quote unquote independents and run in this state. I think you could run as an independent and still come off with some interesting things as well. But you chose it basically because you're like, well, you got to be something. And so you might as well be the Democrat running in the race at this point.
Yeah. So also, one thing I do like about your show, I actually watch it. One thing I actually like about your show is you'll criticize both parties when they're doing wrong.
Well,
you don't see that.
You gotta. I mean, that's the whole point. Otherwise, you're not being intellectually honest. You got to criticize everybody. I mean, when they're doing wrong, that's the only way you can correct it. I've taken some heat from some Republicans who are like, "Well, you can't." I'm like, if you're doing wrong, I got to call you out. How can I? Otherwise, I mean, how unauthentic is that I'm like, oh well, we got to call out the blues, but we can't call out the reds because they're red. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I noticed when you called out Kirka, and like his responses still surprise me to this day. Like why he got the PFD. He said that like Mike was going to do it anyway. That doesn't make any sense to me because if he's running for governor, then why? That's a win for you. Why would you?
Well, because he didn't want to be political. He didn't want to abandon his principles. Don't look now, Russell, but you may have slipped on a banana and fallen into a pool of conservatives, somebody says. I mean, this is interesting. Was in the garage listening on the radio, but I had to come inside to comment that I like this guy. Now it's interesting. We may lose a few of you here because I noticed in your questionnaire, and we may actually pick this back up when we get back onto the radio. But somebody in the chat room asked about your position on Garen Tarr's red flag laws, which were pretty contentious when they came out, and the bill didn't go anywhere. But do you support that legislation, the red flag legislation?
I do not.
Okay. And one of the questions in the questionnaire was, how should the state reduce the threat of gun violence and mass shootings? And you said common sense background checks. Now, is that on all transfers? I sell my buddy a gun or I give a gun to my son. Should they all have to go through some kind of background check?
I'm kind of torn because you see, I don't think that like legislation that works in Alaska will work everywhere else. So, we don't have really too many gun shootings here. You don't see schools being shot up here. I think the system that we have now works just fine.
So you're okay with it the way it is, but it obviously can't be one size fits all. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. One size fits all has never worked. Doesn't work on anything.
Again, a state legislator has no power over this, but now I'm interested. Would you support another assault weapons ban like we had in 04? 94?
I would not.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking through your answers again here. What constitutional amendments, if any, do you support? And you said adding the PFD to the Constitution. We also talked about the spending cap. You said you'd be in favor of that. What about changing how we retain judges? I know that's been a question on both sides. Have you had any thought or given any thought to that question?
No, but I'm definitely willing to look into it.
Okay. All right. We're coming up on it here, Russell. I'm going to put you back on hold. We're about to rejoin the radio here. You're doing great. No panic. It's all, like I said, it's just you, me, and, 50 of our closest friends on Facebook. So don't worry about it right now. We're going to jump back into it, folks. Russell Wyatt is our guest. We're going to continue our discussions with him here in just a moment. And, we are going to we're going to continue here. I'm sorry, I saw a comment in the chat room that made me roll my eyes. All right, that's the bell. Time to jump back into it. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio, the Michael Duke Show. Let's do it. Hey, and they're off. Good morning. Welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Russell Wyatt is our guest, Democratic candidate for State House in District 19. Although I've been picking at his Democratic credentials, and it's been interesting. I often say that I can always find something to agree with everyone, even if I disagree with them on the majority of things. I can always find one thing that I can agree on. Turns out Russell and I agree on a lot of things. So Russell, you said you listen to the program quite frequently. What would we disagree on? What would be the thing that we would disagree on that you would say at this point? I'm just curious.
I guess I really don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe Russell will be running in the future as a libertarian. I don't know. We'll have to find out what's going on here. All right. We were talking before we went to break about education. Obviously, health and social services is a big part of the budget. It's the number one, in fact, the largest budget indicator. There's been some talk about some of the legislature trying to repeal Governor Walker's move to include every optional and available program in Medicaid, which of course jacked our state budget up quite a bit because we have to pay for a portion of those, and we're going to eventually end up having to pay for it all because the federal government's going to stop. Do you support a revision to our Medicaid criteria, the expansion, and everything else, or is this something that you believe that we need to have?
So I have mixed feelings about that. So I honestly believe if you can work, because like for Medicaid, you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything. I believe if you can work, you should be working to get it, because if you get like cash assistance from the state, you have to go through a work training program, and you have to actually work to be able to get cash assistance. But for Medicaid and food stamps, you don't. If you're elderly or disabled, that's fine. You don't have to work. But I honestly believe if you can work, you should be working.
So there should be some kind of means testing or work requirement that if you want this free health care, if you want this free food stamps, if you want these things, then you at least have to show that you are trying to make your own way, that you're trying to pay for yourself, and that there should be some kind of criteria where you just can't walk in willy-nilly and say, treat me, Seymour. It should be, you have to have some kind of income or some kind of attempt anyway to create it.
Exactly. The program was there for the elderly and the disabled and people that are down on their luck. It wasn't there for, everybody just to get forever.
Right. So. Right. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about ranked choice voting. Because this has been a big bone of contention for many people. I think a lot of folks didn't understand what they were voting for when they voted for it. This is my personal opinion, because I think the messaging about ranked choice voting was all about the dark money, right? I mean, I can testify being in radio and seeing behind the scenes that, 90% of the commercials that they ran on the stations that I saw were all about how they were trying to take dark money out of politics, which was a little misleading since it was all funded by $7 million of dark money. But, with 26 pages of instructions in the voter manual, I'm not sure people really truly understood the full epic sway of changes that they were going to be making. What's your thought on ranked choice voting and what, your constituents' reaction and everything else? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually think we should get rid of it. I was talking to someone a couple days ago, and they're like, "So wait, I actually have to vote for someone, or I don't have to vote because you have to vote for more than one person. That's what they believe." And I'm like, "No, no, no, you don't actually have to vote for more than one person." Um, and
But
you
if you
know,
don't,
they're
you're disenfranchising yourself. That's the other thing. I mean, yeah, granted, you may not want to vote for somebody, but if you don't vote for more than one, right? I mean, I would argue that I'm going to vote for more than one candidate. I'm not going to vote for all the candidates, all four of them. I'm not going to rank all four, but I'm going to vote for at least a couple in various races because otherwise I kind of disenfranchise myself, right? Because in that second round of voting, if my first vote drops off, I'm done. Right? And it's so weird. It is so weird. I don't think people understood it. Do you?
I barely understand it myself. So
Yeah. No, it really is saying. So you would support repealing ranked choice voting if you got into the legislature?
yes, I would.
Russell, you're confusing me. All right. Again, size and scope of government. We've gone over that. It's too big. You think that we should remove the top-heavy administration from the schools. You think there should be means testing in the Medicaid or benefits program, which is good because we have 1/3 of Alaskans right now are on some form of government subsidy. In 270,000 people in the Medicaid system right now, which again just kind of blows my mind. What are some of the other issues that you're looking at? I mean, obviously the PFD, as you started it off with it, is a big issue. What are some of the other issues that you'd like to see addressed if you get into the legislature?
Um, Honestly, I honestly believe our police need more money because obviously they're being cut. Um, we're not able to retain police officers. I was talking to one that actually pulled me over like a week ago, and he noticed I was running for office, and he's like, we're actually being cut left and right. The even the call center people, they're working 40 hours overtime, and they're down to like 10 people here in Anchorage, and for dispatching, and so it's there are places that I would actually increase, but there are places I would decrease the budget. And
Right. Can I tell you that you probably should not be running a stealth campaign, that you probably should be out there actively fundraising and putting some money on and getting this stuff done and getting a website because you, you've got some good ideas here, Russell. I mean, I gotta say, I think that although you just kind of threw your hat in the ring on a whim because you were, again, shaking your fist, mad as hell, and not going to take it anymore. I think you've got some good ideas. You and I might not agree on everything, but my gosh, where can we find anybody that we can agree with everything on?
I also support term limits too.
Jeez.
I
Stop. Just stop. Just stop. All right. Well, it's good stuff. Somebody asked pro-life or pro-choice, and I know we're going to part ways on this one, but give me your take on the Roe v. Wade decision and what should happen here in the state of Alaska since it's now reverted back to the states.
So if I was a girl, I would not have an abortion, but I would never stop someone else from having one. I don't believe that's up to me. I also don't think Medicaid should be paying for it unless it's like incest, rape, or is a threat to the mother's life.
Okay. I mean, it's not a position that I can agree with, but I think it's probably the least of the positions that I could agree with. At least you're not out there advocating for free abortions all the time for everyone. I guess my question to you is on that, as you said, you wouldn't have one yourself if you were a woman. But shouldn't we be protecting? I mean, again, I'm a libertarian, which the creed of libertarians is basically do no harm, right? It's basically, leave other people alone and the non-aggression principle, not aggressing against anybody. Do what you want as long as you don't hurt anybody else. Obviously, a baby is somebody else. And, I think that we should be advocating for protection for people who are not able to defend themselves. How do you take that argument?
No, I actually agree with you. Like I said, if I was a girl and I was pregnant, I could never have an abortion. I could not see myself doing it, no matter what the circumstances were. But at the same time, I also respect other people's decisions. And well, I wouldn't have an abortion. I wouldn't stop anyone else from having one. But like I said, I think if the government's going to pay for it, it should, be for a very, very good reason.
Well,
like it was going to kill the mom, or that this
sure.
mom was.
Well, and again, to be the one time I'm going to be argumentative with you, that's like saying I'm sitting in a subway car and I could rob the guy next to me or shoot the guy next to me and take his money, but I don't. Somebody else is going to do it, but I'm not going to stop them because, everybody should have a choice. That's a problem, don't you think? I mean, if you're saying I'm not going to kill somebody, but somebody else can kill somebody and that's okay, because that's their choice. That to me is kind of where that argument falls apart.
Well, I agree with you. My logic on that argument isn't the best, but I just I have mixed feelings about it because like I said, I wouldn't want to take someone else's choice away, and at the same time, I don't want anything to happen to the baby. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, we know it's a contentious issue. It's a convoluted issue. I think it comes down to again the non-aggression principle, I think, is the important part of that. We're coming down to the end here, though, Russell. It's been an interesting and enjoyable conversation. We've got about a minute and a half here, so I want to give you the floor. Your final elevator pitch. Why should people in the Mountain View Airport Heights area vote for Russell Wyatt? And where do they find out about you?
You can go to Facebook.com or Facebook, you type in Russell Wyatt, you'll find out about me. I think you should vote for me because I stand for a full PFD. My opponent wants to not just cut your PFD, but wants to shoot us in the foot by, stopping stopping the flow of money coming in. She believes, Biden's policies. If you go to her Facebook page, she'll see that she supports Biden 100%. She supports Bill Walker 100%. She thinks that you should. We need all this new green energy. That's something that we should have talked about too. But yeah.
Right. All right. Well, Russell Wyatt, again, just look Russell Wyatt Alaska on Facebook and you will find his page. It's Russell Wyatt for House District 19. Thanks for coming on and joining us today. It was an interesting conversation, and I appreciate you coming on.
I hope you'll have me back.
I hope I will too. Keep listening. You did well. Thank you for calling in. Hold the line for just a second, Russell. Don't go anywhere. Folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 dead ahead. All right, Russell Wyatt, one final bite at the apple. I like to do this to give candidates one final check where they're not necessarily under the time gun. So if there's anything we didn't cover, you mentioned the green energy or whatever. Anything else we didn't cover that you want to comment on? Now is the time to do it.
I don't support all the green new energy plans because it will destroy our economy. But at the same time, I'm not against solar and I'm not against windmills, but it shouldn't be forced on us. I also think that Tesla cars are stupid. Electric cars in general are stupid because exactly how are we
going to pay for the electricity and the costs and everything? I mean, we see what's going on in California. I love the fact California is going to ban all combustion vehicles, but the rolling blackouts because they don't have enough electricity now, let alone if they make every vehicle electric. I mean, there's so much stupidity out there.
And I actually have a friend that has a Tesla here in Anchorage, and I'm like, exactly, you don't go anywhere, right? Because you're stuck 300 miles out once you get out of Anchorage. We don't have any charging stations here, and Genevieve was talking about doing it here, and it's like, why? We're nowhere near ready for something like that.
Right.
I'm not against you from having a Tesla. By all means, if you want a Tesla, have a Tesla. But we don't have the infrastructure here. And if you want to go to Washington or, to the lower 48, Canada doesn't have the infrastructure. I mean, you're kind of stuck to Anchorage.
Right.
Why?
Exactly. Right. Well, and of course, they don't really work in the cold temperatures very efficiently. And I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. It's not the end all be all that I think people think it is. That's for sure. Anything else you would dive into? Anything else you would dive into in the legislature that we need to know about here if you got elected?
Not on the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to think of 20 things the minute I get off this phone.
Oh, of course, that's how it always is. The second you'll have that delay, I have that all the time. I call it delayed intelligence. I have this really witty comeback. Of course, I have it about 15 minutes after the conversation's over. So, interesting stuff. Russell Wyatt, Democratic candidate for State House in District 19. Thanks for coming on board. That was a fun and interesting comment. It was educational, if nothing else. We didn't get into the charter of changes. I'm sure next time we will talk about that. Russell, thank you for coming on board and being part of it today.
Thanks for having me. Sorry about the internet.
Well, hey, internet is what it is. Internet is what it is. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on board. Russell Wyatt, candidate for District 19. That was some interesting stuff, was it not? That was some crazy stuff. I mean, that's good. It's fun. It's interesting to see what other people's positions are, especially with the labels that they decide to label themselves with. That was unexpected. Let's put it that way. All right. It looks like we've got our first guest. Josh Church is in the green room right now. Let's check in with him real quick to make sure his audio is up and running and everything is good. Good morning, Josh. How are you?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm going to turn you down just a little bit because you are loud and proud. All right. And are we expecting, is it Fred? Fred coming on board? Is Fred coming on board as well?
I haven't heard from him this morning, so we'll see. We're Fairbanks. We're playing it by ear. So.
Oh, it's Fairbanks. Yeah. I always flew by the seat of my pants when I was at, who am I kidding? I still fly by the seat of my pants, but yeah. All right, Josh, we're going to put you back in the green room then and hold on to you here. We'll hold if Fred joins, we'll test him as well, and get ready to dive into this. I'm ready to go. So hold the line here, Josh. We'll be right back to you. All right. I thought that, Russell really, he kind of explained the conundrum that I think some people are in. They are not necessarily pro-choice, but at the same time, they're not necessarily pro-life either. They're stuck in the middle. Like they wouldn't have one, but they don't really want to infringe on anybody else's rights. But when you talk about killing a person, then they say, well, I really should do something. I mean, it's a hard thing. I guess it's a hard thing up until the point where you decide you don't want to kill people, including babies. I think that's that's where it comes down to. And I think that's where the hard line came for me, because again, as a libertarian, I believe people should have the ability to do whatever they want. You want to smoke crack, just don't hurt anybody, right? Kind of thing. I mean, that's your choice. You need to do what you need to do. But at the same time, you start hurting people, then that's a problem. That's when your rights bump up against somebody else's. And that's always been the problem with the idea of abortion. That is a person. That is a person that will grow to a full-fledged person with their own hopes and dreams and fears and everything else. And the idea that somehow you have the right to remove all of that opportunity because it's inconvenient for you is problematic, and I just think that's, I think that's the problem. I don't want to take anybody's choices away. But you made choices, most of you, statistically, there's a small slice that, again, rape, incest, all those kind of things. Those are horrific. But I've met people who have been rape victims who have raised their own children from those situations. And many of them said, well, the incident was horrific. They wouldn't change a thing because they love their children. Or some people who have given up those children to be loved by other people. Again, should we cut all that short? Because it was tragic or inconvenient, Yes, I'm pro-choice. You have the choice as to whether or not to mostly have the choice to do that deed or not. So it's interesting. You either have equal rights or you don't, says Harold. Okay. So if I kill you, that's okay, Harold. If I kill you or I kill somebody in your family or I kill someone that's okay. Because I've got choice, equal rights, right? Equal rights. Does the unborn child have equal rights? No. I mean, I'm going to agree with you on the equal rights thing. Everybody should have equal rights, including the people who are still growing, ready to be thing. I mean, it's definitely a tough situation, especially in the small statistical area where, you get the rape and incest thing. That's where everything gets sticky. All right, we got to go. Here we go. Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, of course, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch TV as well, and, of course, broadcasting on regular old radio across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is The Michael Duke Show. Good morning. How are you this morning? Hour 2 of the big radio broadcast. No, you're not members of the 6 o'clock club if you didn't get up before now. 6 o'clock club members were here. Where were you? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hint, hint. All right, we're continuing our discussion this morning. We are talking about, we have been talking about candidates for office across the state of Alaska, but we also have some ballot propositions and initiatives that are up there, including the one that appears every 10 years, which is the question of the Constitutional Convention that is put on the ballot every year, 10 years by the Constitution, because the framers decided that we should have an opportunity if the legislature does not have the political will to fix problems, that the people would have the ability to make the decision to amend their Constitution in any way that they see fit, and it's an interesting conundrum. Initially, I was against it because, again, my fear was opening up the Constitution opened up all kinds of things that could be, because it's not just a single issue. You're not just saying, I want to put the PFD in the Constitution and that's it. You're not just saying, I want to change the way we retain or hire judges. You can't just do one thing. It is everything that's going on. And I was a little leery about that. But the more that I think about it, the more that I've realized that, one, there is no political will in the legislature and has not been for the last 10 years to make any substantive change to fix the problems that we have. And two, the people have the final say. The people of the state of Alaska will vote on every change to the Constitution, piece by piece. They will be the ones that make the decision. And I'm comfortable enough with the people being able to make a decision on that I would live with the changes. And of course, in 10 years, if we decide we've made a mistake, we could fight again for another constitutional convention. But there's huge groups out there, mostly the business as usual crowd, the people who have been in power, the labor unions, the legislators, the politicians who like the way that we're doing things right now, that have now raised over $1 million of special interest dark money to go ahead and try and scare people away from the Constitutional Convention. And I thought we probably should get the people who are on the yes side of the question on the program. So that's what we're doing today. Josh Church is with Convention Yes. He is here today to talk with us about that position. And we start off the program with him right now. Good morning, Josh. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing great. And I actually have to agree with you. The beginning of your show, the first hour, you had a really interesting guest and a good conversation. And you recapped it on the end with your position on protecting innocent life. And I've got to thank you for that. I think you did a great job as a father. That's a very important issue to me. So before we get into the convention, I just want to say you're doing a great job with the show and good things.
Well, thank you, Josh, for coming on board. I appreciate that. I mean, I know it's a sticky topic, and I know it's very emotionally charged, and I know some people are. I'm not going to change a lot of people's minds on it, probably, but I think if you just think about it from everybody has a right to do what they want, including those children who had no say in being born one way or the other, regardless of the circumstances, whether it was love, passion, or anger and violence. They had no choice, and so they should have the ability to make those choices down the road as well. All right, well, let's get into the question of convention. Yes, look, all we've seen, and we see how this works. We saw it under the ranked choice voting scenario. At 90% of their advertising was, we need to get rid of dark money, right? I mean, that was the whole thing. It was all about the scary, deep, booming voice of dark money. Now it is all these people who have are business as usual. Again, you can just
before you move on away from ranked choice voting, they were pushing that they're going to get rid of dark money while being funded by outside dark money.
That was the irony of the whole situation. $7 million of dark money funding the Eliminate Dark Money campaign. But again, you could see all the business as usual crowd is in here. Again, as I mentioned, the 1630 Project, the labor unions, many politicians who have been very much tax and spend type politicians, they are terrified that we're going to take away their toys. I think that is the bottom line there. They're terrified that people might actually have a voice in this, and they've mounted this fear campaign that if you open up the Constitution, it will be dogs and cats living, together, mass hysteria, the whole thing. Give us the reasons why, Josh Church, we should be voting yes on the Constitutional Convention.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Alaska is a small state with a small in population size. So what that means is it's very cost effective for advertisers to buy votes here, right? They can put in a couple of $1 million and change a Senate election. They can change a congressional election. So this is cheap to them to influence. And so that's why we see so much dark money playing around in ballot measures in Alaska, and whether that's the Constitutional Convention or supporting one particular candidate or another. So when it comes to this issue, the top supporter for the defend our Constitution, the don't change anything because things are so good right now. I mean, Michael, everybody on your show loves the way things are. Things have been working good for the last 10 years, right? We've been making progress, changes.
Oh, yeah.
It's better for the country, right?
We're just fat, dumb, and happy around here, right?
Right. So since everything's going great and there's no problems, we've got smart people in Juneau and they're fixing this for us, we might as well keep it the same. So the top group who, has a vested interest in keeping things the same in Alaska because it matters to them, that's funding this. The top funder to the Defend AK group is the 1613 Fund, which you mentioned. Most people probably are rationally ignorant. They've got jobs, they've got families, they got better things to do than worry about politics. Well, what is the 1613 Fund? The New York Times calls it the leading dark money group for the left. That's the New York Times. They're not exactly like a right-wing rag. Atlantic, Politico, all the different top articles or top magazines, news articles have ran similar stories. You can Google them and find where they basically admit, yeah, this is a really effective big donor for all kinds of liberal causes. Who's the 1613's top donor? A Swiss billionaire who's not an American citizen. Well, right. Okay. So you've got Europeans giving money to DC, Washington, D.C. based funds that are funding the don't change things in Alaska. So if you're in Alaska and you say, you know what, I think the people in Europe, the people in DC, and the people in Juneau, they know better than me, then you're right. You should vote to keep things the same as they are. If, on the other hand, you think, okay, if we have a constitutional convention, what happens? Well, I, as a voter, get a vote whether or not I want to have a constitutional convention. then those crazy people in Juneau decide how we're going to elect delegates, whether we're going to do it 15,000 ballots or however that's going to work. They'll come up with the process. But then I get a vote on my delegate for the Constitutional Convention. Then once the delegates argue and agree, and hopefully these are not, the same people we have in Juneau, we're likely to get a very different group of people, because these people are going to run one time in their life and they don't have to worry about re-election and doing this and going to Juneau. So we might get a lot better class of people who are not willing to run to Juneau, but are say, yeah, I'll go to Anchorage or wherever it's going to be, and I'll do this for 3 months, and I'll change the course of Alaska. I'll sacrifice my business or my family for those 3 months and do that. And I don't have to worry about re-election. So I don't have to do horse trading. I don't have to worry about the next vote. So I can actually think long-term while I'm a delegate and think about what benefits the state. So once they do that and they come up with their list of changes that'll improve the state, then it goes to a ballot measure and you, the people, get a vote on it. So if you listen to the dark money from outside that says, oh no, this could change everything, you're right. If the Alaskans you elect decide they want to change things, whatever that is, and then you look at those changes as voters and say, yeah, we kind of agree with those changes, you could change how you're governed in Alaska. Now, I'm not actually that terrified about what we as Alaskans decide we want to change, whatever that might be. It kind of blows my mind a little bit that the campaign is, don't trust yourself, don't trust your neighbors, trust us in Europe and DC and Juneau. We know better than you. If you guys actually had the choices to change how you're governed, I mean, who knows what could happen, right? You might lose your gun rights, the ad says. You might lose access to outside wildlife. You might lose mining. You might increase taxes. Wait a minute. The group that's funding this, let me go to the 1613 Funds website here.
1630, right? 1630
right.
project.
Yeah, thank you. Their website says we're empowering progressive change makers. They say we support fighting for economic equality, affordable healthcare, climate solutions, racial justice, voter access, and other essential changes. From advancing equity and racial justice. Anyways, if you go through this, it's strengthening our democracy. And then you go over to Open Secrets, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but that's a pretty good resource when you want to look up what a charity or who's giving to who. So if you go to opensecrets.org, you'll find out that 100% of the 1630s donations go to Democrats. 100%. I did look through a couple of years, and I found 1 year where it was 99.6. So, they gave to somebody else. So the reality is that when we talk about losing gun rights, like those ads says, losing access to this, the group funding the vote no on the convention would like you to lose access to all those things. The problem is they've done the polling and they see Alaskans probably, if they vote, are going to improve their constitution and move away from how Juneau or DC or Europe would like it to be. The fact is, our Constitution is one of the last constitutions formed in the United States, and it's one of the most liberal, socialist, progressive constitutions. And so they want to kind of keep it the way it is. Ultimately, this is a campaign that's based on fear, on outside money, and on half-truths and mistruths. And when you push comes to shove, Alaskan voters have to take a chance and say, do I like it the way it is, or am I willing to take some risk and trust myself and my fellow Alaskans that we can come up with something reasonable, and we get multiple bites at the apple. It's not like you vote for this once and these people in Juneau figure out what's on the ballot next year. No, you're going to vote for this, and then they're going to come back and say, okay, this is how you elect delegates.
Right.
So then we're going to elect delegates. And then those delegates are going to come out and say, this is what we propose as changes. What do you Alaskan voters think? And you're going to come to the ballot. And this may take several years. I mean, if we vote on yes right now, which, I mean, we've got, the other side has $1 million in funding. I think we've raised, $30,000 or something like that right now. It's all Alaskans based on our side funding this. So we'll see. We might not win, but the timing is crucial. If we don't if you look at the trajectory of this state and this country, we're going in a bad road. So in 10 years, I don't know if we're going to have the chance. And I'm nervous for my daughter. What kind of a country is she going to grow up in? But
Right.
I mean, just jumping back so people understand, this is not a one and done thing. What we're asking right now is whether you agree with me or disagree with me on the issues, and we can get into as much time as you have here. We can get into specific issues of what I would like to see changed, but it really doesn't matter. What this vote is, do you want to have the discussion? That's all this is.
Right.
If people vote and say yes, then we have to pick who's going to lead the discussions. Then those people will decide what issues we want to vote on. And then those issues come to the voters again, and we get a vote whether we want them or not. And that process isn't going to be quick. I mean, heck, the people in Juneau don't make anything quick. And to a certain extent, we don't want it quick. We want some time to mull over this. So if we vote yes, then Juneau will decide when the constitutional convention and election is, right? They'll say the process for how we pick ballots. So maybe next November, we're electing delegates, right? And then those delegates have to meet. And so then maybe it's the following year that we're actually voting on the changes that they propose to us. I mean, this is probably a multi-year effort.
We're estimating this is going to be somewhere in the 3-year range. This is probably going to be a 3-year process from the time of the election of delegates to the convention itself to putting it to the people. It's probably going to be a 3 year. It's not fast by any means. And there's lots of stumbling blocks and stopgaps and protections that are built into it. And I think, again, that was one of the things that swayed me from initially being very leery of it to understanding it and then supporting it. Josh Church is our guest. He is with Convention Yes, which is the pro-ConCon side of the equation. We're up against the break. We're going to continue with Josh here in just a moment. Folks, if you like what you're hearing, make sure that you find out a way you could support the show by simply going over to our website at michaeldukeshow.com and joining the Common Sense Corps, which is our cool kids club. It's the fan club. For as little as $4 a month or something, $3-4 a month, a cup of coffee a month, you can help support the show, and we gets us all this gee whiz cool stuff where we can show videos of interviewees and everything else. Go check it out, michaeldukeshow.com. Just click on Join the Corps. All right, we're up against it. We're going to come back here in just a second. We're going to continue with Josh Church, and we'll continue this discussion about the Constitutional Convention, the pros, the cons, the things, the items, and more. We'll be back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and michaeldukeshow.com.
Okay, we are in the break right now, commercial break. Josh Church continues with us, and we're going to continue having these discussions. I like to sidebar a little bit during the commercial breaks, Josh, just so we don't repeat ourselves for people later on. I mean, what made you throw your hat into the ring to be to be the spokes critter for the convention? Yes, folks.
Yeah, sorry about that. I kind of went on a rant, didn't let you jump in there. I get passionate about this.
No, not at all.
Well, so why did I jump in? Well, it's because of who I am and the passion. So I should have gotten involved in this, years ago, and we should have been raising and working hard on this, and maybe we'd had a better chance at winning. I don't know if we're going to win, but I got called earlier this year, and they said, "Hey, would you want to be a part of this?" And I thought about it, and for just a brief period of time, I said, "Yeah, I do." And ultimately, for me, what it comes down to is, I served my country in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places around the world. I was in the military for 9 years. And what I saw is a lot of what we were doing was fiction. I mean, I joined. I was idealistic, and hey, we're gonna make the world safer.
Right.
We're gonna spread freedom and democracy around the world at the barrel of a gun, and we're gonna
Right.
protect America from terrorists. This whole time we're fighting there under the guise of protecting terrorists or protecting America from terrorists. We're letting 500,000 people stream across the border. Now it's up to 2 million.
Right.
What? So terrorists aren't smart enough to like get to Mexico and walk across?
Right.
So my point with that is, there comes a point when you have to say, do I really trust the players that they're these wise people on this ivory tower, this esteemed, the people in DC and Juneau, they really know what's best for Alaska? Or at some point do we say, maybe we need to change, it comes down to your charter of conventions. We got to change the rules. We've been trying to change the players, and that's not working. So we need to change the venue. We need to change the funding. We need to change the rules, because we've thrown out some of these bums, and a few of them are on the Defend the Convention website endorsers.
Oh yeah,
we tried changing the players, but it still hasn't changed the system.
Right, we're going to start with that when we get back to the radio, but you're right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the politician's disease runs rampant in DC and Juneau and every capital in America, where people are like, we know better than you how to run your life. So just shut up and sit down, children, and let us do our thing. But you can see where it's brought us. It's brought us to, wars, to, the loss of blood and treasure for, trying to export democracy to countries that have no appetite for that. They don't. I don't think you can bring freedom to people who aren't ready for freedom. I think it's a losing cause. We saw what happened in Afghanistan. I mean, my God, that's been a quagmire for 1,000 years. I don't think we were going to change much of anything there. So, I mean, I agree with you. I think a lot of times it's tilting at windmills and doing things that it costs us in blood and treasure. And I agree with you. I think at some point we all are idealistic. I was very idealistic and patriotic as I got when I was younger, but as I got older, I saw more and more that what was happening was that while America is still the shining beacon on the hill, it's still the best that we got, even with all its warts and blisters. At the same time, it's not doing the right thing a lot of time, and I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I grew up, this country has been good to me. I was one of the ones, fortunately, to come home from Afghanistan. Some of my friends didn't, but I've been able to. My brother was just reminding me the other day as we got out of his, brand new truck, that when we were kids, we used to go to the donation place to get food, and people would give us their old hand-me-downs, or we'd shop at a thrift store, and we'd go to those, I don't, not welfare places, but whatever they were, where they donate food.
Food banks, right?
Yeah, the food banks, right. And I'd forgotten about that.
Right. What a change. What a difference a change. I mean, the opportunity is definitely here.
And I want those opportunities for my children. And I don't think we're on the trajectory to get there.
No, I would agree that we're kind of on the downhill slope. Hold the line here. Jumping back into it, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. All right, we're back. We're talking about the Constitutional Convention. I'm talking with Josh Church, who is with Convention Yes. And that is the organization that is pro on the Constitutional Convention question. Of course, we've seen, as we were talking about earlier, this absolute blitz. I mean, you guys are being outspent 10-1 at this point, Josh, as far as getting the messaging out there. But one thing that I've always done and have done for the last 20 years in politics and issues and things like that is one of the things that I like to do, especially if I don't understand all the aspects of it, is I always like to look at who is supporting it, who is in favor of it, and who is against it. I like to see who are the members, people maybe that know more about it than I do. And all I knew is the more that I looked at this and the more that I looked at the people who were against it and for it, I understood that maybe I hadn't thought it all the way through. Now, you mentioned, of course, the 1630 Project, the NEA, the IBEW. These are the largest contributors. $1 million has been raised from those organizations alone. Then all I do is go to the Defend a Constitution page, the group that's anti-ConCon, and I see that Kathy Giesel, Joel Hall, John Coghill, Bruce Botello, Bryce Edgmond, and Luke Hopkins are all part of the committee that's put this together. And then the individuals who are supporting it are Scott Kendall and Vince Beltrami and Cliff Groh and Doug Isaacson and Joey Merrick and Jim Lotzfeld and Pascavan and Andrew Halcrow. And I look at all these names and then the organizations that are in support of the anti-ConCon group, including the Alaska Center, the Institute for the North, the cities of Juneau, and all the chambers and all the NGOs, the chambers of commerce and the Economic Development Corps and the Alaska Municipal League. And all I had to do was look at that and go, oh, well, I obviously have to be for a constitutional convention now because, you are who you are made up of. And these people are all the business as usual, keep government. Because what we've seen in the last 10 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we've seen a cadre of people in Juneau, in and around Juneau, both legislators, NGO people, all that stuff, that are all very much pro-government spend, pro-public economy, public sector spend versus the private sector. They would prioritize public sector spend all day, every day over private sector spend, and they would take money from Alaskans because, as you said earlier, they have the politician's disease of we know better than you how to spend the money. That's all I had to do was look at all those numbers. You just go to one page and I can go, oh yeah, I'm not supporting this at all. I am against whatever they are for. I am against, because these people obviously are prioritizing the growth of government over the growth of the entrepreneur economy.
Yeah, I don't really know how to follow that up. I completely agree with you. There's some people on that list that I think are good people against this. But those people have been wrong on a lot of different issues, whether or not they're good people or not. They've been consistently wrong on the issues. And I've talked to John Coghill, and he just doesn't trust the voters. Basically, he just thinks we're too far gone as a country to open up the convention, and I get that from a lot of people. But the question I have to ask is, do you think we're going to be better in 10 years? Do you think we're going to be better in 20 years? Are we on the trajectory to turn this around? So if you think it's bad now, let's just leave things alone and just let the elites continue to plan it. I mean, if you're in some of these people, life's been good to them, and that's the human nature. You don't want to go into fear and unknown. If you're on the top of your society, you've been a senator or this or that, and you've ran a business and you're respected in your community, and you get to go to the Chamber of Commerce and they welcome you. You don't want to change things, and that's all well and good, and I understand that.
That's human nature, right? I mean,
that's human nature. But I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I came from nothing. We were below the poverty line growing up. My parents gave up everything to go in the mission field. We went to lived in Oregon on pastored church. Then we moved to the Philippines. We came back to Alaska, where I was born, after being away for the first 14 years of my life. And I started building houses with my dad and my brothers and paid my way through college. Then I joined the Marine Corps, eventually got into Marine Special Operations and came back to Alaska, started some businesses. And now I'm working for a financial management, wealth management company. And life has been good to me. But right. I started with nothing, and I had a lot of opportunities, and I want those opportunities for my daughter. But these last couple of years, you know what I see? Shelves are bare. Supply lines are broken. We're going to lock you in your home. Even in Alaska, they came out and said you can't travel outside of your district to another district to go hunting. That lasted for about 5 minutes because all the hunters were like, yeah, pound sand, how are you going to stop us? But we have I've never seen government grow and just seize power so fast. We think we're so far away from New York or China, but we are on a trajectory. If you look where we were 50 years ago versus where we were now, or even 20 years ago, I don't recognize what's happening in Fairbanks and in around the state and the country compared to when I was a kid.
Right.
The opportunities are disappearing, and the culture is changing, and I'm nervous for what kind of a country and a state we're going to hand our children. So absolutely, I think it's worth the risk.
First and foremost, hoorah, Semper Fi. Second of all we have to do is look at, I guess that the argument then becomes, do you want what we have now? And do you want more of it? And all we have to do is look at the last 10 years in the state of Alaska. We have consistently spent more than we take in. We have drained $15-16 billion out of our rainy day savings account when it was not a rainy day. It was pretty good financially overall. We just continued to overspend it. The cupboards are now bare, so to speak, financially. We've got $1 billion in the CBR, $500 million in the SBR. We've got $3 billion in the earnings reserve, but there's not much left. And the biggest question that we should be asking ourselves is there the political will to make the changes in Juneau that are necessary to fix the way that the business as usual, the way business has been going now? And if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, there's the will to do it, then absolutely vote no. But if you look in the mirror and go, there is no political will to fix what's fundamentally broken, we must take the reins as citizens, then you have to vote yes at this point.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it goes back to your charter of changes. Change the players. We've been trying that for years. Nothing seems to change. They get down there and they get bought off by the others, or whatever happens. Nothing changes. Change the venue. Constitutional Convention would do that. Change the funding. The Constitutional Convention has the authority to do that. Change the rules. That's what they're there to do. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it's obvious. We've been fighting over the same issues, bickering about the PFD for years now, and not focusing on other issues. And the funny thing is, it's actually somewhat worse than you brought up. So most people know, okay, the PFD formula got set up and they took 25% of oil revenues and they put it in this fund, and then they blah blah blah, and now we have this PFD, and the state spent the rest of it. I went and this is years ago, but I wrote a paper about this, looked into it a little bit when I was in college at UAF, and it's closer to around 14% of the actual oil revenue is what is in the permanent fund. So they pull little caveats out of the PFD and they pull money out for this and that. And so the reality is about 86% of the oil revenues that came out of the ground, the state spent on, building new schools or roads or whatever it is. And at some point you have to ask, with those billions and billions of dollars that came out, and you got to keep 14%, and now they want to take that away from you, what did the state do with the other 86%? Well, let's look at that. We have the worst schools in the country. We're 48th, 49th every year for years. We have the worst roads in the country. Oh, well, that's just because we're in the Arctic. Really? I've been to Canada. Their roads are a little better. We have the highest pay, state and local, the per capita. We spend the most on state and local government of anyone in the country. And yet point to where our infrastructure is better. Point to where our results are better, our grades, our students. Oh, look at our crime. We've got bad crime. Look at suicides. We have some of the highest suicides here, drug rates, alcohol rate, all these different things.
Sexual assault, right? Yeah.
I think this is the best state to live in. I moved back here, right? I was gone. I was away for 9 years in the Marine Corps, and I chose to come back here, right? So I think this is a great state, but it's not a great state because of the government's job, of the government's funding and what they're doing. We spend more than anybody else, and we get some of the worst results. Right. So you got to ask, what did they do with the other 86% of the money they took? And now they want your 14%.
Well, and that's the argument. I mean, government is, the question is, past performance is indicative of future results. So if they have done such a great job with all this money so far, what happens if we give them all of the money and more? I've often said that if they take, if they whittle away at the PFD, eventually it will be gone. There will be no more pot of money to draw from, and then guess whose pockets they will go into then even further. We're
Michael,
already.
your greed is unfathomable. I can't believe you want to keep that money to yourself.
How could you be so greedy? Why do you hate children, Josh? Why do you hate children? That's the
The
question.
bridges will collapse.
Yeah, I know. The bridges will collapse and it'll be dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
I usually skip show intros, but yours, every time I hear that, I get a kick out of it.
Yeah, well,
great intro.
It is what it is. Look, Josh, we're up against the break. I'm going to keep you for one more segment if you've got the time, and we're going to finish this up here and wrap up and tell how people can help and what they can do and everything else. We're talking with Josh Church from the Convention Yes Group. That is the pro-constitutional convention with the why we should be voting yes, why we should not give in to the fear. And it is, folks, it's nothing but fear mongering. I've seen the ads. I've listened to the ads. It is nothing but fear mongering. That's all it is. And we need to overcome that. Maybe we'll take these piece by piece and start talking about this. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. It's a big battle. It's an uphill battle for sure. But we'll talk about that here in just a moment. We'll be back with more right after this.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
All right. I just, oh man, I just get so agitated by this whole thing. I'm with Dukes on this, says Laura. She says, having a ConCon concerned me, but there's nothing to lose anymore. Let's do this. New bumper sticker, constitutionalist, let's convention. Yeah, I mean, motor on. Let's get this thing done. I mean, I agree. I was very leery in the very beginning. Because again, my fear was you open that up, and because I think we had just come off of the ranked choice voting, and I had seen what had happened in the state because we're a cheap date, right? We're a cheap date. That's what the main funding gal for that thing. I can't remember her name, but the gal that was one of the prime supporters of the outside political interests for ranked choice voting. She said Alaska's a cheap date. $7 million. It's nothing. We'll just throw that money in there and we'll get ourselves a state. And first of all, that just pisses me off. Second of all, the worst part is that because it's true. That's what makes me mad, is that it's true. And so, but I was really worried. I saw the influence of that dark money, and I thought, if we get a constitutional convention, they can swing it, they can sway it. The legislators might be participating as delegates, which would be disastrous. I mean, that would be the first thing. I know that they can participate, but I would really like to see the constitutional convention taking place during a session so the legislators can't participate. But in the end, I decided, if we don't do this, what are we going to do? Because the political will's not there. And the people do get the final bite at the apple. They do get the say. They do get the say in the end. And, if not now, then when? And if not us, then who? To paraphrase somebody, right?
And there's a couple of points you brought up there that are really great. So the first thing is all the money's going against it, which means that they've done the polling and they're afraid of how Alaskans will vote. So that's good. We're on the winning side. Now, whether we've got enough money to get the word out and convince enough Alaskans to vote yes, maybe not, maybe we lose. But if we win, we know the outside money doesn't want this to happen. Now, if we do win, we're going to have to double our efforts down because they're going to throw $10 million into helping us pick delegates that'll screw us, right? So we're going to have to double our effort if we win in order to say we need to get the right guys in. But to that effect, even if the legislature, says, hey, we can be on the ballot, which I sure hope that's not what happens. I mean, they're not just going to say the legislature's in session and we're going to do it. We're still going to have to vote in. So that's like 100% of new people getting voted in, right? Versus when Juno happens, you only get a third of the people to re-vote on every time. It's not. So we're going to have much better odds of, however it happens, of getting more people in that are different, that we like, and people are going to be a lot more willing to run when they say, I can do this for 3 months and that's it. Then I'm done. I don't have to worry about re-election.
Right.
So there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty, but at some point, we've got to take a chance.
Right. We've got to try. Now, Scott in the chat room does make a valid point, and I have thought the same thing, Scott. Scott says, to the just trust the people crowd, Alaska just voted for ranked choice voting and Mary Peltola. I rest my case.
No, it's a great point, but let's analyze that a little bit. So we just voted for ranked choice, funded by outside dark money. So I don't trust the people of Alaska. So I'm going to vote the way the outside dark money wants me on this other thing. Wait, what?
Right, exactly. And again, I think what we saw with Mary Peltola is a function of ranked choice voting more than anything else at this point. So, while I agree that it is troubling, I, at this point, am willing to take, because again, what's your other option? Your other option is to do nothing and let things continue the way, if you keep doing what you've done over and over and over again, that's the definition of insanity, which is what we're doing right now. Would this be a walk in the park? Absolutely not. I mean, worst case scenario, what happens? Everything comes down. You get a bunch of weird delegates of things. They change the Constitution, and then the people vote it all in. Well, okay, that means we've got a 10-year battle to go back and repeal all that stuff. But I mean, even below that, the next worst case would be we get a bunch of weird people. They put all these different amendments in, and the people vote it down. Okay, we've wasted a little time. What's the third option? Just keep doing what we've been doing? It's not working.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the polling indicates we're going to get a much more conservative, a much more Alaskan type independent constitution than what we have. I think, and I generally still trust Alaskans. I mean, you look at how they voted over the last few years. I mean, heck, I was just looking back. This is a long time ago, but basically, Alaskans never vote in liberals unless there's extenuating circumstances. For example, the only reason we had Tony Knowles is because Jack Coghill ran as an independent and took 27,000 votes away. The only reason, we had
right.
I
get it. Hold the line. We're going to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio, final segment. Let's do it. All right, final segment of the show today. Coming up on tomorrow's program, just for those of you who are paying attention at home, Ginger Bryant, who's running down on the peninsula for Sarah Vance's seat, and Ron Gillum, who is also running down on the peninsula for re-election in his seat. Right now, we're talking with Josh Church with Convention Yes, which is the pro-ConCon side of the equation. Everything that I've seen so far, Josh, has been fear. Fear. That's what it's all about. That's what their messaging has been about. We'll lose our gun rights. We'll lose. We'll let liberal interests come in and change the. Although ironic that again funded by the 1630 Fund, the most liberal PAC or think tank out there. But I mean, we'll lose all this. It's all about fear. So counteract some of that fear for me here and tell me. What are your thoughts on that? Because again, you hit gun rights in Alaska and even, Democrats and Republicans together band together and start shaking their fists. So how do we counteract that fear?
Alaskans lose when we don't pay attention, we don't get involved, or we get duped. I mean, we were talking in the break room. Mark Bagich won the Senate years ago after the FBI, framed Ted Stevens, and they later he got acquitted, of it. But it was too late. And if you go back and you look through the different elections of the state, this state leans pro-gun, pro-God, pro-family, pro-life, pro-hunting, these things we overwhelmingly vote in. We're pretty heavy independent states, but when a good candidate comes with those positions, that's the way we vote. We only get these liberal candidates when it's a three-way race, or there's some extenuating circumstances. There's dark money. You look at how Sullivan's results against the Bear Doctor crushed it. You look at same thing with Donald Trump. You start going through these elections for decades, and even to current, this state leans very much. The voters when they show up, they come out and they support the values of hardworking Alaskans, and the liberal side of it. Even our Democrats in the state, most of them support being able to get out and hunt and being able to fish and look at Mary Peltola's ads: freedom, family, fishing. Heck, I can get behind that platform. Now, I'm not sure that I really buy what she means by that, but look at the way the Democrats run in this state. They run conservative ads to win. So I think when people are informed, when they know the issue, and they get out and vote, we win. We just listen to a fear-mongering ad, then who knows what happens.
They only do it because they know it works, right?
Oh, yeah,
Remember, dark money.
Yourself.
Right?
Yeah.
Dark money. I mean, what did the Veritas Project video show? They showed the people behind the scenes of the ranked choice voting saying, we know that this dark money message, this scary dark money message will win. We just hope that they don't point it out later on that that's what we did. I've been pointing it out since the very beginning, that that's what this was all about. This was not about, this was about changing the voting system, but the messaging was all about removing the scary dark money from politics, which it did none of that.
So we'll probably lose convention. Yes, we're outspent 10-1, and we've got all the top elites and smart people in business in the chamber. Heck, the Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. I said, hey, can we get on here? You're having Luke Hopkins to talk about, and they said, well, we'll get back to you. So they've got one side on. We'll see if we get an opportunity to present our side. So we'll probably lose this convention, but I'm supporting it because it's the right thing to do. And I hope I'm wrong. Guess what? Warts and all, when President Trump won that first time, he won with nobody thought he was going to win. They thought it was a joke. The news media laughed at him, and he had a tiny amount of funding. But the people rose up and said, we're sick and tired of this. We're going to change it. Same thing happened in 2010 with the Tea Party. So if we win, it's because Alaskan voters ignored the dark money ads, and they said, I'm tired of the way things are.
Right.
And I'm sick of being lied to by the same people, or sending people down who just they're good people that they just can't get it done. They just don't see the issues clearly.
You know what this reminds me of, Josh? This reminds me of the PFD fight in 1999.
I don't remember that.
Okay, so the PFD fight in 1999, when they attempted to put the POMV in the first time, and they put it to a vote of the people, the pro-POMV side, which includes some of the same players that we're talking about today, John Coghill, et cetera, they spent over $3.5 million in the state in 1999. So I know it's been 20 years, but that's real money back then, right? $3.5 million. The anti-PFD raiders raised, on a nickel and dime basis, $20 at a time, they raised about $600,000. So almost the same kind of position that you guys are in. And when it was all said and done, the people of the state of Alaska voted 83% against raiding the PFD. So I do trust the people, especially when it comes to things like that. Now, that was directly about their pocketbook. But at the same time, we've got to get the message out. We have got to get the message out that that the time is now. Here's why. The people get the final say. You can do it. We need to, and don't give in to fear. Don't give in to fear.
So early 2000s. So after that, I was starting to work. I was building houses, saving up money, starting to go to college in the early 2000 timeframe. And I was starting to pay attention and, what's this PFD issue? And I looked into it a little bit, and I saw that over and over, that people had tried to steal their money, and the Alaskans just put their foot down and said no. And so I remember being proud, like, hey, this is something that'll never go away because Alaskans have put their foot in the sand and politicians can't do it. Then some governor figured he could steal it, and then the court said, yeah, why not? the legislature can ignore the law. And so then the legislature said, hey, if the governor can do it, we can do it too. And so every time this came to the people voted it down. But they just figured out a way, and the courts agreed with them to take your money.
Right.
And that's ultimately kind of what this convention comes down to. At a certain point, we the adults, it's our pocketbook. We need to get in there and straighten up and clean house and say, you know what? Courts, you think you can just allow the legislature to do whatever you want? Legislature, you think you can just reach in and take our money? Governors, you think this you can just decide how? I mean, Alaskans have had, when it comes to the PFD issue, not only are they trying to take your PFD, but where does that money come from? Well, that's the oil revenue that was our share. What do you mean our share?
Right.
Well, the
earnings of the
Constitution,
oil revenue.
right. In most other states, if you find gold or oil or something on your property, it's yours because we believe in private property. The state of Alaska only sort of believes in private property. Hey, if we find something valuable on your property, we get to keep it. But don't worry, we'll share the profits with you until a little bit later down the road, and then we decide we need all that back too.
Right.
So
right.
it's just when people complain about the Alaska economy not being diverse enough. Why do you think it's not diverse? 99% of the land is in government and Native Corp hands. The public sector, the private sector gets 1% of the land, and they get none of the subsurface rights. So you really, what is that? Like you get like 0.5% of the land, essentially, of the resources.
Right.
So, and then we say, yeah, I don't know why the private sector, Alaska's economy hasn't grown more, been more diversified.
And now with the permanent fund, they are feeling like they don't have to diversify. If they get the permanent fund up to $100 billion, then they can just live off the proceeds of that. They don't have to diversify, and they don't have to listen to the people.
Well, your hero, and one of my favorite people that you put on the intro, the trust fund baby, that has some really great sound bites there at the beginning. If you want a government made up entirely of those, give them the PFD, because say no to the Constitutional Convention. Because the reality is, if the government gets to take all the PFD, which is basically what some of the candidates running for governor want to do, or reduce it to 25% that you get to keep or whatever, and for now, and then they'll change that later and take it all. What you're essentially doing is saying, let's just have a government solely funded by this trust fund, basically this permanent fund. So they don't give a crap what the people think. They've got a fund. They can spend how they want to, and they'll just spend that every year and grow government, and you'll get more of the crappy, worst schools in the country results. So, I mean, if that's what you want, if you want entitled legislatures and entitled government who just lives off a trust fund, sure, give it to them.
That's what you get. We got less than a minute here. Josh, I'll let you wrap up. Final thoughts, and where do folks find out more? Or how do we donate?
So thankfully, I am not the top donor of Convention Yes anymore. I was for a little bit, and I'm not quite as wealthy as the 1630 fund. So we're starting to get Alaskans to chip in. So go to conventionyes.com, conventionyes.com. We also have a Facebook page, Convention Yes. You can sign up for newsletter alerts. You can upload a video of why you're supporting. You can sign up there for more information. You can like the page on Facebook or go to the Convention Yes website. You can donate on the website. And we're looking to drop some ads with the little bit of money we do have. And this is going to be a grassroots campaign. Just start calling the radios, doing op-eds, and talking to your neighbors.
Josh Church, Convention Yes. Folks, we're out of time. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Oh, man, that was so quick. I was just seconds away from right up to the break. Okay, Josh, one final bite at the apple. One final bite at the apple. I'll give it to you. Anything that we didn't cover today on this topic that you want to, and then again, you can repeat where folks can find you and how they can donate. $20, $5, $2,000, whatever you got laying around. And time as well. If you want to get signs, wave signs, do things. So one final bite here. Josh Church, Convention Yes. The floor is yours.
Convention Yes, Facebook Convention Yes, and conventionyes.com. Sign up, donate, get involved, talk to your neighbors, do op-eds, give us some money if you can. But let's just start getting the word out. If you want to, even if you're a liberal and you disagree with me on the issues, all we're asking is, do you trust the people of Alaska to have a conversation about what we can change? You may think we need to change different things than I want to change, but let's open this up to the state to have a discussion.
Right. You want to have a discussion about privacy and the right to abortion? Let's have it.
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I mean, we may disagree, but we'll at least have a discussion.
Absolutely.
Let's get it done. Convention Yes. What's the website? ConventionYes.com?
ConventionYes.com. And then we're a Facebook as well. Convention Yes Facebook. And just get involved. That's what we got to do to make this a better state for our kids and our grandkids. If you have them, we've got to get involved.
Hoorah. That's it right there. That's exactly it right there, baby. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep fighting for it no matter what. Josh Church, thank you, my friend, for coming on board and joining us today. We appreciate it. Maybe we'll try and have you back here in a couple weeks, 3 weeks. We'll see what the schedule looks like. We'll see if we can get you back on. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Have a great day.
My friends, we got to go. Don't forget to check. Whoops, wrong one. Check us out on Patreon if you'd like to support the show. Thank you for coming on board and being part of it today. Tomorrow, Ginger Bryant, Ron Gillum. Friday, Second Amendment Foundation will be joining us. But now it's time to go do more work. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
This is day, I don't know what the heck day it is, Madam President. It's day a lot. And we're all tired. And it is time to get a new perspective. This fishbowl and air is very stale. My clothes, I'm so sick of them, I don't want to wear them anymore.